Hello everyone. Today we're going to go through something a little bit different. We're going to go through tips for tips for first timers. We're going to go through a little bit of how I would kind of set up preps to create some aggressive recomps, and I'll show you guys some examples of the kind of things that I mean. So here we have Neo, right? Here's the start of prep on the left, towards where he sat at about 14 weeks out. You can see like substantial tissue gain, right? Now we're not just talking about he's fucking leaner. Again, good amounts of muscle tissue. Here we've got Finn. Now this isn't a prep, but this is a first proper photo shoot. And again, you can see, particularly around those pecs, just substantial amounts of tissue growth across the board, which is absolutely fucking wicked. We've got Camille, most famously, again, 207 to 207. Look at the changes in definition across the quads there. And then we've also got Aaron, long-term client of mine. Here's where he was when he started, and here's where we are now. And you can see, again, aggressive kind of recomping. So let's go through how we do that. What does that actually look like? How do we actually kind of... how do we formulate that? How do we fucking do it? Oh, I shouldn't have sworn it's a YouTube video. I'm going to put the blue light blockers on. Let's get into things. So first things first, we're going to kind of start off with a timeline and start position. So the key thing really here is understanding what your start position is. Are you having the capacity to gain more body fat? Should you remove body fat? If you're aiming to gain body fat, how much are we going to gain? If we're aiming to lose body fat, how much are we going to lose? So my key kind of advice would be, if too fat, I would say go leaner. Okay, nice and easy, especially with a coach. Okay, if you're kind of just getting into coaching, there's going to be to some extent some level of newbie gains that's going to come from working with a coach and recomping aggressively just through getting leaner. If you're getting leaner, training performance. I really can't emphasize how important training performance is, and I'd also probably look to leverage more so food for your deficit than activity. I like to keep a nice baseline expenditure level. So for myself at the minute, that's 20 mins CV daily plus 10k steps. Okay, nothing too crazy. Now you could easily up this to like 30. I think anything above like 30 and 15, especially if you're just kind of mini cutting instead of actually fully prepping, I think that's where you're really going to start to cost yourself. And if you get to the point where you're having to push super hard on the expenditure because food's low, I'd say probably it's just a case of adding a bit more muscle tissue, or potentially accepting that a recomp is probably not going to be on the cards for you right now. But if you're too fat and you go into a coach, getting leaner is always going to be the way, because a coach is going to accelerate your progress. You're going to get some newbie gains from that, and that will give you fantastic results. But again, training performance so important. If you can get really strong, you're going to churn through calories. Churn with a capital ch. A lot of the time, I would just keep a baseline level of expenditure, play around with food, a little bit of pushing, a little bit of pulling, refeeding, de-outputs, etc. as needed. And I'll get someone to the point where, because we've upheld trainer performance, we can almost use that to drive calorie burn and create a far better position. Now, with kind of timeline in terms of getting leaner, I would just say get as lean for as long as you can. Okay, and now once you're at that point where you're, say, 6 weeks out condition, that's where you can start to kind of pick classes. I just realized that this is a slightly off center. Ooh, there we go. Then you can get to the point, like I said, where you can start to kind of pick your classes and pick what you're going to go for. So are you going to be a men's physique fella? Are you going to be a classic fella? Are you going to be an open fella? Okay, that's what it kind of all comes down to. So once you've got that 6 weeks out condition, then you can start to pick classes. Okay, then I would probably aim to push up. And again, the main focus here is clearing fatigue from that deficit, and then aiming to not reach peak levels of body weight, not reach peak levels of food. Use food to drive performance. Yeah, you want to get to the point where body fat is a healthy percentage and you feel pretty good. But once you're at that point, don't add food unless you're really trying to, improve performance. Maybe trickling in a little bit here and there if you see that you're getting leaner. But ultimately, we're just wanting to kind of use food as a tool to drive up performance, to drive up muscle mass. We don't want to be reaching all-time levels of, softness and body weight. And then in the pre-prep diet, that's where I'd play more aggressively, try and get yourself ahead. And then as you head into that prep, that's where I'd start to slow things down. So key thing is, right, start position. Get into a favorable place. Regardless of what you're doing, training performance is always going to be key. Whether you're using training performance genuinely as a form of expenditure, that doesn't mean not progressing lifts. You're still going to be progressing lifts, but still using training performance as a form of expenditure. If you look at the biggest, strongest bodybuilders, they churn through food, and it's because like Reese is a great example, right? Reese Pearson. Like whenever he does anything, it's ridiculously heavy. The man can diet on like 4,000, 5,000 cows, right? And yeah, obviously he'll diet on less than that and really, really push himself, but he'll then often take like 1,000 carb refeeds, potentially even more. Like I've not followed the guy for or like the ins and outs of his prep for this prep, but at least his last prep, it was like frequent, maybe like multi times a week of like 1,000 carbs. Like when you are strong, you're going to churn through food, and I see it in my own clients. You can get training performance up, you're going to be in a really, really good place. Now, don't let quality slip. We still want to be, controlling those movements, really driving stimulus, etc. But ultimately, like training performance is such a powerful tool in terms of what we can do to create expenditure. If you can go from, say, deadlifting or hinging like 100 kilos to 200, that's drastic in terms of how much food you're going to need. And also, the muscle tissue to support that on your frame is going to churn through food. It's going to be very metabolically active, okay? So start position, get into a favorable place, understand where you kind of need to be for whatever class you're going to, okay? Once you know what class you're going for, once you know when your show is, and do get a show planned and booked, that's where you can kind of start to reverse engineer things a little bit and either push up into things and then diet down, or diet down, then diet down again. I always like to kind of sequence and push up between like a pre-prep diet, because I think for most people, unless you're someone who can diet on like super easily, there's not much use case for just kind of like continually dieting. But once you got that start position in a nice favorable place, almost kind of being ahead, food's in a decent spot, you've not pulled on too many levers, training performance is in a lovely spot, and we're going to uphold this as best as possible, that's when things need to be far more push and pull. And this is why start position is so important, because just linearly dieting through prep is just not going to be ideal. Training performance is so king, okay? If you want to drive a recomp, you need to gain muscle mass. In order to gain muscle mass, you need to drive up training performance, okay? And this is so important, okay? Now, again, it also can act as a form of expenditure. It's not going to be our main form of expenditure. We're not going to send the volume sky high. We're not going to start ragging around lifts. But the more that we can uphold this, the more muscle tissue we're going to build. The more muscle tissue we build, the easier it is going to be to recomp. But also as well, on top of that, the more that we can, drive expenditure up through our own training, through increasing the demands of training, the better of a position you're going to be in to maintain a higher level of food, or even create a deficit on the same amount of food, okay? But the push and pull of prep is so important, okay? So refeeds, de-outputs, and we're going to go through some of those in a sec real quick. So we'll just kind of head over to my Instagram. We'll run through those old posts that I posted up a while back, okay? Now, prep is very much a mental game, so equally as well, I like to keep people ahead so that they know that they're ahead. So again, one benefit that comes from that is they're more confident in how they're feeling, they're more confident in the overall process, and equally they're probably going to be more okay with us potentially refeeding. Okay, so let's run through some refeeding and kind of taking high days of food. So a refeed in essence is like a couple days of overfeeding, deliberately overfeeding beyond someone's baseline, not just maintenance calories. We're talking like an active surplus, okay? The goal of which can, hopefully probably you guys are fairly familiar with, replenish any lost glycogen. So glycogen is the stored form of carbohydrates. Mainly when we're talking about glycogen, we're more talking about inside of muscle cells, so intramuscular glycogen. Yeah, there's glycogen in plenty of organs, liver and brain, to kind of two main ones that you would focus on. But again, we're really only kind of focused and fussed about intramuscular glycogen. The others will come with it. It's not as if like, oh shit man, my liver's depleted, we need to take a refeed. Like, that's never really going to be something that you would notice nor care about, okay? Clearing fatigue. So again, coming from the fact that with higher food, your psychology is going to chill out a little bit. You're taking yourself out of a deficit, away from that fatigue, but again, big psychological benefit. And also practice peaking. One thing that I always like to do with people, and I'll kind of show you it here with Camille, is whenever I've got someone kind of going through like a feed, I'll look at their pictures and kind of run like a mock peak. So I collect meal by meal their data, so fluid, current body weight, just to kind of see like how are they filling up. Are they filling up aggressively? Are they spilling or drying off aggressively? So like meal 5 207. If we go to day 2, we woke up at 203, so dried off fucking aggressively. I need to stop swearing in YouTube videos. So that tells us a lot about how potentially we could that informs a lot of peaking decisions there. We could decide, okay, if that's the case, then we potentially, if we know that we're going to be competing fairly early on, we could probably go for quite an aggressive spill, because he dropped like 4 pounds of glycogen from that final meal to that first meal. And then within all of these, I just have the shots. I take a look at things and we cross compare. Here's where we are there. And then if we go to day 2, meal 5, how are we looking in a similar shot? Way fuller, definitely some blur on the quads. At the time of taking these pictures, there was a little bit of definition loss, because there was some information there. Midsection a little bit blown out. Okay, so for classic, probably not the best. And then if we look at the next day fasted, let's have a quick look here. Okay, midsection looks tighter. Yep, definitely tighter. Still not as tight as when we were flat and depleted, but significantly tighter there. And that gives us a lot of information there again about for his specific class, which is why I yapped on before about how important picking your class is. But it tells us a lot about, okay, here's how we can start to modify his food and his peak. And that's all data that we can get purely from refeeds, okay? So I would typically reserve refeeds for like preps, photo shoots, fast and timeline-based diets. So a timeline-based diet would be like a photo shoot, like a prep. And a fast diet would be like if you're mini cutting really aggressively, then yeah, sure, you might have refeeds. Okay, diets that require us to be very lean and or move very fast for a deadline, a mini cut typically isn't going to be needed in terms of a refeed. Primarily we're talking about bumps in carbs and a minor bump in fats. There is some guidance here, but again, it's very, very, very visual, very much dependent on what we're seeing. So if we take Camille, for example, we went in with 1,000 carb because we've done it before, we know what the output was. We went in with 10 IU of insulin, and then we bumped that up to 20 IU because we did actually see that there was a little bit of some food volume issues, and we noticed on the second day where we're a bit better about sequencing our steps, a bit better about separating out our fluid, and we took that insulin increase. We saw that first of all there wasn't any excessive spilling at all with that increased insulin, which is great to know, and with the better spread out of fluid and better spread out of steps and the insulin, we saw that overall things are in a far better position in terms of his appetite, which is what we want. We want someone responsive and able to kind of manage that food. We don't want you feeling bloated and crap, because if the refeed tells us that we're feeling a bit bloated and crap, then that tells us that, hey, we're probably going to get ourselves into a position where when we go to peak, things are going to be slightly screwy as well. Okay, we don't want to repeat the mock peak where you had digestive stress. We don't want to repeat, the refeed where you had digestive stress and put you in a position where you just got digestive stress on stage. So de-output, kind of a similar idea to a refeed, usually paired together. The idea being that this is a short period of heavily reduced output, okay? So typically this is followed by a period of high output, or a diet that is generally very high output, or usually it will come down to, if it's just a de-output, it's someone's feeling pretty fatigued from just being on excessively high output, not excessive for their goals, but excessive for what they can recover from over a long period of time. It's not sustainable. But typically I also might pair it with like mock peaking someone, because like there with Camille and 1,000 carb, we've got a lot of food to get in. We don't want to be going and doing cardio. We don't want to be doing a ton of steps. It's just going to take away from things, and it's just going to mean that we have to put in more food. Okay, so typically I would pull all cardio. I very, 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 very rarely, and can think of very, very, very few cases where we keep in some form of cardio. Steps I'd reduce to 50 to 75%, and make sure that we still keep in some kind of baseline activity to improve digestion. Okay, but the key really is when your start position's good, your training performance is upheld, you have the room to push and pull within your diets. You can keep yourself or your athletes super, super responsive. You can make sure that you can still drive up performance, still take big jumps in the gym with quality being upheld, there we go, or upholding through the use of refeeds and de-outputs. And that's really the key. If you're in a position where you just have to linearly diet over and over and over and over and over again, you're not going to be in the best position to leverage the most out of recomping through prep. And recomping through prep should always be the aim. Every single phase, the aim should always be to build muscle and to improve on your physique. Prep is the time where your physique improvements are most important. And yes, for some people, prep is just going to be a case of hold on to everything you have and then still land on stage trying to present that as best as possible. But I'd always rather that in prep we physically made improvements as well as just getting leaner. as well as just holding performance, as well as just holding muscle tissue, because adding more and looking even better and being able to be better than the super lean version of yourself from when you started is always going to be favorable. Okay, now a little bit of a different video. If you guys like this and you want to see more like this, then please do let me know. It's a little bit off the cuff from me as well. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Plenty more where this came from. Cheers, guys. All my links down below. If you want to work with me on coaching, you can see the link is in the description. I also do coaching education similar to this, but far more detailed and in depth. We cover everything from nutrition to training to injuries to posing to pharmacology, endocrinology, all of the ologies, as you guys I'm sure can imagine. If you want to work with my co-coaches Matt or Camille, who work at different price points to myself, Camille is our injury rehab specialist as well, and Matt is our posing specialist. And if you want to head over to my Instagram, the link's down below. And as always as well, if you want 10% off your Conti Sports products, like this big old bottle here, then you can use the code Archer10 at checkout. Okay, but anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.